FightHype.com. We're here with one of the most legendary and most accomplished promoters in the entire sport, Duva. Kathy, not a whole lot to talk about before fight night because it is tomorrow, but let's say the odds makers are right and Kovalev wins and Bivol wins. Is that a fight you want to make?
Oh, of course. More importantly, it's a fight that I think both fighters want to make.
And now, is it an unfortunate set of circumstances for Sergey at 35 that would be the most likely unification against probably the toughest guy in the division?
You know, I don't know if unfortunate's the word. You know, Sergey has made it very clear that he just wants to get the titles back and he will fight all the champions in any order. He has never ever been picky about who he fought. And, you know, I think the way he looks at it, if the guy's holding the title, he wants to fight. It's nice to be able to work with guys like that. You know, it makes our job a little bit easier. But it's boxing, and we'll see what happens. You know, first we have to get through Saturday.
What is it, do you think, about Sergey keeps him hungry and motivated to get all the titles again? Because again, he's 35 and he has already been there. So why do you? A lot of fighters maybe at this juncture wouldn't have that drive to get to where they once were.
You're right, and you know, I think that's what separates great champions from guys who are just fighters. There's a lot of very good fighters, and a lot of guys win world titles, but to have that, Sergey's always been a special fighter. There's always been something about him that set him apart, and I guess, you know, as his career progresses, we keep seeing more and more of it.
Do you ever think to yourself, gee, if we had gotten the decision that a lot of people thought we should have in the first Ward fight, we could be in bigger places than and you're doing a great job getting the place almost sold out here in AC, but do you ever go through that in your head?
Every morning, every night, and every afternoon. Look, he would have been the biggest thing in boxing, but for one point, in a decision that was very poorly judged. But that's boxing, and that is the razor-thin edge that we all walk on, so part of the game.
And, you know, it's been almost over a year since then, but I've never really got to talk to you about the second fight. The first fight was more obvious complaints with scoring. What did you think about the second fight? Did just what materialized and Ward won that night?
Yeah, you know, there was a lot of playing with Sergey's head, which was a lesson he learned. Ward was very good at it. The games that were played with his training situation and all that, you know, that was a master class on how to psych somebody out. And so I think Sergey learned from it, we learned from it. But again, it happened. I didn't like the way the fight ended. I saw 3 low blows in a row, and the guy who threw them, he had his hand raised. I've never seen that before. But, you know, again, we agreed before the fight that we're going to abide by the decision of the referee and the judges, and so you have to, whether you like it or not.
Do you think that the undefeated record going away, things like that, do you think it mentally Kovalev won't be the same fighter when adversity hits? Like if Alvarez tomorrow night comes and makes it a grueling fight, how do you think he'll react?
Yeah, this is why we make the fights, to find out. A lot of great fighters have lost fights. In fact, most of them have. And again, what sets the great ones apart from the ordinary ones is how they react when they hit adversity. Do they learn from it and move on and keep their hunger, or do they just stop? Look at you know how again, it would be easier to name the much shorter list of fighters who never lost a fight, who are considered great fighters, because there's only 2 people on the list, probably.
Marciano and Floyd.
And you know, I'll give Andre Ward his due.
Right.
Although I do think he lost a fight. he just got the decision. But that's the whole list, you know. So think about every great fighter that you have ever seen, and recognize every single one of them lost a fight, and that includes Dempsey and Tunney and you know, starting at that end, and Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and George Foreman and, you know, and Mike Tyson certainly, and, you know, Lewis and Holyfield and, you know, all Hagler and Leonard and Duran and Hearns, and I can go on and on. Arturo Gatti certainly, and, you know, Tito Trinidad and Julio Cesar Chavez. We just keep going. They all lost a fight. So if losing a fight is somehow, you know, an eraser to your career, well, then explain all those people. This was an experience. It was a bad one, and like great champions, Sergey moved on. And obviously, as a fighter gets older, there's another dimension to his game. Now he's using his brains to compensate for perhaps whatever step he may be losing physically. I think as a physical specimen, Sergey is still in pretty darn good shape for a guy who's in his 30s. But I think nowadays people are aging better. They are smarter about their nutrition, about the way they live, all those things. And I think it shows. I think athletes are extending their careers up in boxing now up to 40 is a pretty regular thing. So he doesn't see himself as being past it. He, as you know, won the title from a guy who was almost 50, Bernard Hopkins. So, again, we have a terrific fight. He's being tested by an undefeated challenger who earned his shot. And that's really all you can ask the guy to do, because over and over and over he has demonstrated he will fight absolutely anyone who will fight him.
And if we do get to this Bivol Kovalev fight, this unification, obviously you're going to go with your guy. But as a fight fan, how do you see the fight playing out? How tough of a fight? How does Sergey pull that off? Because it's a fight. If it gets made, he might actually be the underdog, and despite being the champion and all those kinds of things.
Well, I think that would be a mistake if that's the way they play it. Look, here's the way I look at the two. I mean, we're very fortunate. We're working with World of Boxing with Dimitri. I identified him a long time ago as the future of the division. Whether that future is now or whether that future is a few years off, I think of Canelo Alvarez, who stepped up and took that fight and lost and came back and is still the biggest attraction in boxing.
Right.
Again, stepping up and taking a challenge if you don't win should not be career-defining. It should just be a step in the road. So I know Dimitri's going to get there someday. Whether he's going to get there when he faces Sergey in the foreseeable future, again, that's why we fight the fights in the ring. But Sergey is experienced and has a lot of knowledge and a lot of polish on him. And I think we'll know more after we see the two of them tomorrow night, and that's part of what makes this interesting.
And one of the things I wanted to get to, too, before I let you go, Kathy, was HBO. You have a great relationship with HBO, not just now, you have for decades, putting great fights on there. It looks like HBO, a lot of people feel they're going through a rough patch. Some people even use the word decline. You got Eddie Hearn's DAZN, and Showtime's doing what Showtime does. Bob Arum went over to Top Rank. How's HBO doing? Do you think 10 years from now HBO will still be a predominant force in boxing?
Oh, I think absolutely. Anybody who's going to count them out just doesn't recognize the power behind that brand and realize they've just been acquired by AT&T. AT&T owns DirecTV.
It's this business you're talking about.
And DirecTV make a fortune off a pay-per-view. They're getting half of the revenue. Realize they're making more than we are off of every sale. So it would make no sense for that corporation to give up on boxing. They've just gone through a merger, and as a merger is happening, and it was a big, long process because the government tried to hold it up. And so when a company is in that position, the employees who work there during that transition don't have a free hand. They really don't. And I think the timing of this just worked out where it just seemed that HBO was just in a position where they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they didn't. If they step up and try to outspend Al Heyman when he had a pile of money that nobody was ever going to replicate, they were just throwing their money away. And so lay back and see what happens. They can come back to where they were as the leader in the sport anytime they want. And I keep asking people to please name for me the fighter who's a big star in boxing in the United States who hasn't fought on HBO.
Well, there's definitely stars, but I get what you mean. You're talking pay-per-view.
Not just pay-per-view, I'm talking about a guy who moves the needle. A guy like Sergey, a guy who casual fans know who it is.
Well, Mikey had a hell of a crowd at Staples Center last week, Mikey Garcia.
And he did fight on HBO.
He did fight on HBO before.
See, every time you name somebody, I'm going to tell you he did fight on HBO. That's the fact.
Well, how
I'm sticking with the horse that I know is going to win.
Well, how frustrating has it been, though? Kovalev Stevenson. Everybody wanted that fight. You guys said all the right things, and
we really wanted it. We really wanted it. That word's just saying things. We meant it.
So how frustrating has this Cold War been? It's been almost 6 years now, and what's the crux of it? How do we get here? Who's the blame? If not singling one person of it, how do we get here?
There have been Cold Wars before.
It's true.
When Holyfield was fighting Lewis, Riddick Bowe on HBO, Mike Tyson was fighting on Showtime, Julio Cesar Chavez was fighting on Showtime. They both either went back to or ended up on HBO. Tyson had been on HBO previously, but at that point, Don King controlled Showtime, and they had their own little ecosystem going over there. And it's no different, and we had ours, and it's really no different at this point. The change has come now is when you see ESPN and DAZN coming in, and they're all competing for the top level fights. It's a great time to be an elite fighter. The problem is for everybody else.
Yeah, the fans.
And the fighters who are not elite fighters already, because there's nowhere to go. So you're either fighting on an undercard, which is never going to make you a star. If you can't step up and fight in a main event somewhere, you are not going to become a star. That's just not happening for you. And no matter how promising you are, frankly, Julio Cesar Chavez is the best example. He was fighting on Mike Tyson undercards forever, and no one knew what a star he was until Tyson imploded, and this guy, King out of necessity, started moving Chavez up. He was just there to get Mexicans to buy the pay-per-view.
Trinidad too, right?
Perfect, yeah, there you go. They became stars by default when Tyson fell, and that's because no matter how great you are, no matter how much potential you have, you're all crowded on somebody's undercard, you aren't going to become anything. You're not becoming a headliner. You're not becoming a star. You're not becoming someone who's going to have a legacy, and that's what I mean when I say, a big fighter. So I think that, as was the case when this was the way things went in the past, there was change in management somewhere, and change in attitude, and decisions to do things differently, and then that didn't work anymore for Don King. At that point, he had to start coming over and making deals. We all had to make deals with each other when we wanted the big fights to happen. HBO was not very happy when Pernell Whitaker went over to Showtime and did a pay-per-view to fight Chavez Sr. Just said that was the only way that fight could happen, and happily Pernell was able to come back afterward. I remember that being a major point. When we did Lewis and Tyson, we actually had the two companies working together. I think in the future, that's when you have all these silos, where you have ESPN and DAZN and HBO and Showtime. I think it's going to be inevitable that the big fights are going to have to people are going to have to find a way to work together and make them happen. Because if you don't, the fighters will stagnate and they will reach a plateau in their earning potential, and sooner or later, somebody's going to come along and figure out a way to offer them something and make them do it. So I've been doing this a long time. Yes. I think what we will see is the media, as every form of media before it, this over the top now, where everybody's going into an app or online. Somebody's going to buy them all up. Somebody's going to come and vacuum the whole thing up and own it. And when they do, everybody will be back in the same place again. Don't worry.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
You're welcome.